Did you know there are entire countries that Chinese citizens can't visit anymore as of 2024? With growing global tensions and shifting international alliances, several nations have imposed restrictions on Chinese travelers, impacting tourism, business exchanges, and cultural interactions. Today, we'll dive into the top 10 countries where these travel restrictions have changed the landscape and discuss the reasons behind each. Stay with us until the end because we have a surprising bonus country on this list that might catch you off guard. Our journey begins with India, a country that has had a turbulent relationship with China for years. The tension primarily centers on ongoing border disputes in the Himalayan region, particularly among the line of actual control. According to the BBC, this long-standing tension turned violent when the two countries clashed in the Galwan Valley in 2020, resulting in casualties on both sides and further straining diplomatic ties. Fast forward to 2024, and India's restrictions on Chinese visitors are tighter than ever. Initially, the ban focused on government officials, but it has since expanded to affect tourists, students, and business travelers alike. Chinese citizens now face intense scrutiny when applying for Indian visas, with a large number of applications being rejected. This shift has led to a drastic decrease in Chinese visitors, slowing down the cultural, educational, and business exchanges that once connected the two nations. Unfortunately, diplomatic ties between these neighboring giants continue to show little sign of improvement. Next, we move to Japan, another country experiencing strained relations with China. As noted by the European Parliament, the main source of conflict here is the ongoing dispute over the Senkaku Islands, a group of uninhabited islands in the East China Sea that both Japan and China claim as their own. These territorial disagreements, coupled with other political frictions, have led Japan to impose stricter travel policies on Chinese nationals. While not a complete travel ban, these measures make it challenging for Chinese citizens to enter Japan. The visa process has become longer and more rigorous, with heightened security checks. This has caused a noticeable drop in Chinese tourists, who once flocked to popular Japanese destinations like Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto. The decline in Chinese tourism has affected Japan's economy, especially in the hospitality and retail sectors that previously benefited from these visitors. As diplomatic tensions linger, it remains uncertain whether these restrictions will ease anytime soon. The United States and China have had a complex relationship for decades, but recent years have seen an escalation in tensions, largely due to trade disputes, technology competition, and concerns over espionage. By 2024, the US has implemented some of the strictest restrictions on Chinese travelers, particularly targeting students, scholars, and professionals in sensitive fields. Recent reports show that the Biden administration has continued to uphold these measures, citing national security risks as the primary reason. For Chinese students who once represented a significant portion of the international student body in the US, getting a visa has become nearly impossible. The impact on tourism is also considerable, with major US cities like Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco seeing a significant drop in Chinese visitors. This decrease has affected both academic and economic ties. With no clear path to ease tensions, restrictions are likely here to stay. Before we continue, if you're finding this list intriguing, remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on more fascinating global topics. And let us know in the comments if any of these restrictions surprised you so far. Our next stop is Australia, which has historically been a popular destination for Chinese tourists, students, and immigrants. However, relations between Australia and China have become increasingly tense due to concerns over foreign interference and political influence. CNN reported that the Australian government has responded by imposing strict travel restrictions on Chinese citizens, resulting in widespread visa denials. These policies have had a significant impact on Australian universities, which previously relied on Chinese students for a considerable portion of their revenue and cultural diversity. As enrollment from Chinese students drops, universities face financial challenges. Additionally, Australia's tourism sector has felt the hit, with fewer Chinese tourists visiting iconic sites like the Great Barrier Reef and Sydney Opera House. This shift marks a major downturn in Australia-China relations, with economic consequences reverberating across multiple industries. In Canada, relations with China took a sharp turn following the 2018 arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou, according to Al Jazeera. This incident heightened tensions between the two nations, and by 2024, Canada has implemented stricter visa procedures for Chinese nationals. Driven by concerns over espionage and political interference, Canada now requires rigorous security checks and imposes long delays on visa applications from Chinese tourists and students. For Canada's tourism and education sectors, this change has led to noticeable declines. Chinese students once represented a significant portion of international enrollments in Canadian universities, and their reduced presence has financial impacts for these institutions. Chinese tourists also played a vital role in Canada's tourism industry, but with new restrictions, fewer are making the journey. Despite ongoing negotiations, these restrictions seem unlikely to lift soon, reflecting the diplomatic strain between the two countries. Since Brexit, the United Kingdom has been reshaping its foreign policy and strengthening its alignment with the United States. Part of this shift, as highlighted by the UK Parliament, involves addressing cybersecurity concerns tied to China's influence and tightening policies for Chinese travelers. Driven by heightened concerns over cyber threats and political issues related to Hong Kong, the UK has imposed stricter travel restrictions on Chinese citizens. Chinese students, who once made up a significant part of the UK's international student population, are now facing drastically reduced visa approvals. This decline in student visas has affected British universities, while the hospitality sector has seen a sharp drop in Chinese tourists. With ongoing debates about China's role on the global stage, these restrictions signal the UK's increasingly cautious approach toward Chinese travelers. In Vietnam, historic tensions with China have intensified, especially over territorial claims in the South China Sea. According to Harvard International Review, these disputes have sparked a wave of nationalism in Vietnam, leading to tighter entry restrictions on Chinese citizens. Cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, once popular destinations for Chinese tourists, are now much harder for Chinese nationals to access due to visa restrictions and increased security checks. The tourism and trade sectors in Vietnam have felt the impact of these restrictions. However, as Vietnam strengthens alliances with other regional powers, the rift between Vietnam and China seems likely to widen further. Given the rising national sentiment and ongoing maritime disputes, the current restrictions on Chinese travelers are expected to remain in place for the foreseeable future. South Korea's decision to deploy the US-backed THAAD missile defense system has sparked an enduring diplomatic rift with China. In response to the deployment, tensions have simmered between the two countries, and by 2024, the Global Times reported that South Korea has implemented stricter travel policies for Chinese nationals. Once a popular destination for Chinese tourists and a hub for cultural exchange, South Korea has seen a noticeable decline in Chinese visitors. These restrictions have also impacted business relations with companies from both nations, navigating the challenges of a tense political climate. South Korea's firm stance on these policies indicates that restrictions on Chinese travelers are unlikely to ease in the near future. The Philippines has a complicated relationship with China, primarily due to overlapping claims in the South China Sea. In 2024, the Rappler noted that President Marcos Jr.'s administration imposed stricter travel restrictions on Chinese nationals, particularly those engaged in business and tourism. The Philippines has also strengthened its military alliance with the United States, adding further strain to its relationship with China. The effects of these restrictions are evident in popular tourist areas like Manila and Cebu, which have seen a decline in Chinese visitors. The political rift between these nations remains, and as the Philippines reinforces its alliances, travel restrictions for Chinese citizens are expected to persist. Lastly, we arrive at Taiwan, a country that remains a focal point in China's foreign relations. Rising military posturing from China and Taiwan's strong stance on sovereignty have led Taiwan to impose nearly impenetrable travel restrictions on Chinese citizens in 2024. What was once a pathway for potential reconciliation has turned into one of the strictest travel restrictions on the list. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, Chinese visitors are now subject to meticulous screening for potential security risks, leading to a significant decline in tourism and cultural exchanges. Taiwan's unwavering commitment to its independence makes it a highly restricted area for Chinese citizens, highlighting the intense political divide. And here's our bonus country facing unexpected restrictions for Chinese travelers: Norway. Known for its peaceful international stance, Norway has recently imposed limitations on Chinese visitors, increased cybersecurity concerns, and Norway's cooperation with NATO have contributed to a more cautious approach toward Chinese travelers. As global tensions grow, even countries like Norway are reevaluating their travel policies. And there you have it, the 10 countries where Chinese citizens face travel restrictions in 2024. If you found this video insightful, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss more content on global developments. Share your thoughts in the comments below and tell us if you were surprised by any of these restrictions. And don't miss our next video on the 8 unrealistically luxurious prisons for super rich that leave you speechless. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.